Yo, hey everybody out there, welcome back to another episode of the InforMILLy Honest Podcast. What up? So, we are four brothers from the middle neighborhood of Gary, Indiana, coming to you to talk about this thing called life. No matter wherever we go, wherever the conversation leads, we always pride ourselves on them three principles: being forthright, vulnerable, and most of all, honest. I wonder if anybody can even really, if anybody just thinks I'm machine gunning this speech at this point. But yeah, fellas, how you doing? We got Josh, we got A-Dub.
Yo.
And we got Adam.
Morning.
And Brother Marco.
Yo, welcome to the show.
Fellas, how's your week been?
Long. It's been long and boring and boring and busy at the same time because it's doing a bunch of stuff I don't necessarily want to do, but a lot of it. So
real tedious and benign.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah, I feel that, Adam. Mine's been fairly long as well. My clients are starting to pick up. So that means business, of course, is starting to pick up for me a bit. I'm not always the best at scheduling and shit. So I'm always setting reminders, which is something that I never really do, that I've been encouraged to do for a long time now, and finally actually have to suck it up and do the shit. But as you can see, I'm taking a nice respite in the south of France. I got some beautiful windows and light flowing through here. No, I'm just bullshitting. But for the most part, yeah, pretty good week, y'all.
Marco?
Mine been cool. Besides, like a few little problems, shuffle around car issues, but besides that, it's been all right. Pretty good.
Word. I had a pretty decent week. I had a long residency at the university and teaching for their dance minor program. It was real cool. Real sweet kids that, I say kids because if you're undergrad in college, you're still a child. But no, it was a fun program, and all overall good productive week. Let's hop into it. So Adam sent this into the chat. I'm gonna read the message as is. I got into a nice little civil back and forth with one of my professors about this. When, if ever, is violence acceptable in a democracy when trying to make change? So, Adam, give us a little context into that conversation with you and your professor.
Absolutely. And based on Josh's previous designation, I am still a child. No, I was kidding.
Fresh out of high school.
Yeah, no. So we were talking about so let me give some more context. It's an American government class, and at the time we were talking about democracy. So there's like this underlying thing where it's like is America actually a democracy? Basically, that's like the because like most people would say yes, and then we've been analyzing like the Constitution, trying to figure out, is it really? But anyway, so we ended up talking about Martin Luther King and Gandhi as far as their nonviolent approach goes. And so she asked the question, when is violence acceptable? And people made their answers, and I was like, I'm gonna try to give a crack at this question. And I was like, well, I think that if you go to you go to a protest for whatever the reason is, and you're like, I'm planning on being nonviolent, I'm not gonna, that's the plan here, like it's to be peaceful. However, if people start beating on you, like police officers, whatever, it's like there's a good chance you're probably gonna lose that battle. But at the same time, I'm not gonna let somebody just beat me upside my head if I didn't do anything wrong. So I was like, if you go into a peaceful situation and people start beating on you, I think that is when violence is acceptable, even though you're probably going to lose that battle. But it's like, I'm not, and then she was like, Martin Luther King wouldn't agree with what you're saying. And I was like, okay, like I'm not trying to appease Martin Luther King either. Right. So, but yeah, it was interesting because you could tell she was kind of like, and then she started talking about the Black Panthers, not in a bad way at all, but I guess kind of saying like your views align with the Black Panthers. Like, yeah, they probably do.
Probably.
It was interesting. So yeah, that's the overall, kind of like story.
Yeah. I
Okay.
kind of feel like, and your views kind of line with the Black Panthers in one moment and then line with more Martin Luther King in another moment, just like you
Yeah,
said,
that's
depending
true.
on how shit turns out,
Yeah. And I think she kind of misinterpreted what I was saying. Like, it wasn't like I was saying, I'm going to go into a situation planning to be violent, because I would know.
With
People
the
that know me
intent.
knows that's not my, I'm not like that.
Yeah.
But it's more of like a self-defense type of thing. Like, I'm like, I would defend myself. So, but so yeah, that was pretty much the summary of the, of the situation.
My mind always races with subjects like this because I want to address the original thing of, is America a democracy, but also I can't help but need to jump into the need for people to validate the idea of nonviolence when no change has ever come from nonviolence.
Yeah. I agree. Like, I agree with that. In the big picture, I do agree with that. And one point that, I'm sorry, I just say this. One point that I wanted to make, I just didn't get around to making it, was like America it runs on violence.
It runs on violence. It was founded on violence.
Exactly. So the way it became a thing was off of violence. Like, every big thing was based on violence. So it's like, I don't think it's really shocking for citizens, especially a citizen that is part of a group that has been victimized by America's violence. It's not really that. I don't think it's that ridiculous for someone that looks like me to believe that, based on, because all the changes that's been made on our behalf are this, like, civil rights. Yes, there were people, peacefully protesting in the 50s and 60s, and we wouldn't be where we are today without them. And that's great that they did that. But, there's also a lot of riots in between that time that, like, for example, the George Floyd protests, unfortunately, some did break out in riots, and how some of them started is still, still a mystery. But
speculation, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, there was a lot of stuff that happened after. A lot of people, like, a lot of changes were made after that, because we were like, oh, okay, we can't. Now, why they was made? Maybe it's because they were more so like, we don't want our businesses burned down again, or maybe it was because we're actually listening to these people. I don't know. But regardless, is people don't like their stuff being damaged. And sometimes you gotta break a few windows to get a few rights. so
let's try to hit this bullet point by bullet point, so we don't kind of get lost in the sauce. Let's start out with, this is not we're informal, not informative. So so
big juicy facts right there.
so I'll most of the things we're gonna say are somewhat based in fact, a lot based in opinion. I'm gonna just say that outright. Before we get to this discussion about if America is a democracy, in my opinion, based on a microcosm of research, no. Because we could say it tries to run democratically, but it tells you outright it's a republic. One, because there's the guise of people elect officials, but we don't.
Yeah.
We elect maybe congressmen and all that kind of stuff, but as far as like the executive branch is concerned, we tell people who we want to vote for and hope they make that fucking same choice. So, because the popular vote in that regard is irrelevant. And then you get into all these situations like gerrymandering, when we get onto those lower level tiers where the people who are running for the office that are supposed to represent you can cater a map to make sure they win. It's like,
and it's like, it's not like we're giving all truthful, fair, right amount of information so we can make the best decisions
and all of that.
The most informed decisions to who we might want. Like, everything we're seeing and reading, you can't trust that shit is correct. So, like, if that's what we're supposed to go off, then come on, it's crazy.
I mean, you want to hope that that's the case, but I mean, like, just last week, I met this guy, Lamont. I can't remember his last name. But he's running for alderman of the 4th Ward. I don't live in the 4th Ward, so that's why I'm like, he seems like a cool dude. His face,
he was like, bro, get away from me, man.
I mean, like he seems like a real cool dude, and that's where the building for Deeply Rooted is going to be made, and so that's why he's particularly important.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird because his face kind of moves like Mark Spencer's from West Side Theater Guild, but they don't look nothing alike, but they have the same like facial dynamics. It was weird. It was really weird. I've never seen anything like that.
My man had a mystical moment. We might have to end the episode on that. You can just dive into that a little bit.
But I say all that to say, it's always interesting when you're talking to someone who's in politics and has been in politics, because it's like slam poetry the way they talk. And to me, that I don't like when a particular job has a particular speech pattern. That makes it sound disingenuous to me. It's like when you talk to people who run pyramid schemes and they say your name 37 times in the conversation, and I gotta tell that person, stop fucking saying my name. No one fucking talks like that.
Yeah. A lot of folks in politics like just have seemingly the most energy that, like they just have like infinite amounts of energy. I'm like, Doug, I just don't believe that you're this excited about this all the time, man. It's hard for me to believe. I hope you are, but come on, man.
Yeah, I say all that to say, I know he's running. I feel like he's running an honest campaign. He's going out there door to door and talking to people and all of that kind of stuff. And so that's one thing, but that's an alderman of a section of a major city. That's not a senator or a governor who barely will go have intimate conversation and all of that kind of stuff. And at that level, I have a harder time trusting you.
Yeah, I feel you, Josh. I should run it back a little bit and just acknowledge that like there are local politics where folks like there are people with good intentions doing genuine things for sure. I'm sure in local and higher up the ranks. So I shouldn't just jam everybody in the same bag. But I mean, even with like I was thinking like even if you go on the internet and you search something like I feel like so many sites, so much information can be changed and altered, and like I'm also not the biggest tech guy, so I could just be talking out of my ass per usual. But I just feel like so much information can be changed from. I mean, you see that like the smear campaigns they run on one another, like both sides and shit. You have no idea what's going on, and it's sad to have to even consider that this is even a possibility versus just getting full information,
Well, one thing people can do, if you are concerned with how the person you're planning on voting for or might vote whatever it is, like maybe this person's already in Congress, something, you could go on Congress.gov and you can actually look up any representative you want to, and it gives you all of the bills that they've sponsored or written, whatever, or support, and it has their whole history. So that's one way that you can like cut through like the BS, if because we always see like the like you said, the smear campaign, like ads that says Donald Trump said in 2011, and they'll try to do stuff like that. But that's all I want to say. Like you can actually look at, which I'm sure people know that already, but you can look at the history of these politicians to see if they're actually voting on the stuff that they supposedly believe in, or are they just taking our votes and then going to Washington D.C. and just voting on whatever keeps them in the seat, because we know that happens too.
Yeah, I want to believe that people are like going on the actual .govs and getting that information, but I think it's just more enticing and easier to like to do the opposite, and get the easy shit. Get the easy information that is on some BS.
Yeah. I wanted to kind of go back to the beginning a little bit, like when Adam was talking about the Martin Luther King thing,
Yeah.
like I just feel like some conservatives, or to be specific, like racist conservatives. Not that all of them are, but a lot of them.
Overwhelming
They like to use MLK as like this figure of what Black people should be, because he was nonviolent. I feel like they want to use that to subdue people. And I really don't like that he is the face of all Black people for sometimes. Like I love what he has contributed to the whole movement, but I feel like they do that. Like I don't like that.
I mean, even with King, he's always some sanitized, bastardized version of King.
Yeah, that too. Like for Adam's professor to use that to try to guilt him into his view, like that's ridiculous to me.
Absolutely.
Like you don't understand the full scope of this fight. Like, and it is sometimes a physical fight. Yeah. And I also because you said y'all was studying the Constitution, and in the Constitution, like I actually brought it up as to where it says it talks about when our government gets out of hand. Like, it says, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, delivering their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles, blah, blah, blah. And so I be like, whenever I hear that term, when they basically saying overthrowing the government, what exactly do they think that it, like, what form does that come in? Because they didn't say, here's how you do it. It's not.
Because they're not going to say, here's how, they're not going to just straight up say
it's like, don't be violent with it, but that it sounds like it takes force.
Yeah, I mean, you could. It's always so many thoughts. Sorry, my brain rushes.
All good. Happens to the best of us.
Somebody go, because I got to read them.
Come on. When I'm in a funk like that, I say, it's funny because whenever I'm in a funk like that or I have that situation, I always look at Adam's face, and it's always a funny thing. It's so funny, man.
There's so many things to address inside of that, of like, if the government is being an oppressive force, they're not going to tell you how to overthrow it.
Yeah, of course.
Especially at the time that this motherfucker was written, it was like 400 people in the whole country. Niggas only had muskets, so it took 25 minutes to load a gun. Like there's so many outdated concepts inside of how that Constitution is supposed to work.
Yeah.
And even to talk about, well, that's why we amended. A new amendment hasn't happened in creator knows how long.
Since 92. That was the last one.
That was
30 years ago. That's a long time, though.
That's a long time. Right.
Yeah, I think that needs to happen, man. I'm not talking about overthrowing the government necessarily. I'm talking about like kind of revising the Constitution.
Yeah, it needs to be updated.
Yeah. And the thing about it is like, I think that's the greatest like okey doke about American politics is it keeps putting on this propaganda that people have a say so. And not whoever their quote unquote political leaders are. And they're like, well, we pay you with our tax dollars and you're supposed to, represent our interests and whatnot. But Mitch McConnell ain't represented nobody's interests since 1892. So like there's no way that you really think anyone over the age of 45 is representing the massive interests of whatever place they represent. It's just there should be to me there should be an age cap on anyone in politics.
For me, I don't think there should be necessarily an age cap, but in my opinion, should be like a term limit, because there's people that's been running, that's been in office for
way too
25,
long,
30 years. Like, we were just watching something on this guy in New York, in the Bronx. I forgot the guy's name, unfortunately, but there's some guy that was he's been a senator or whatever. I forgot. I think a senator for like 30 years, and the guy before him was there for like 30 years. And why it's even like a conversation was because it's actually in Harlem, not the Bronx, but like back in I think they said like the 70s or something, like between like, I don't know, like 71 and 90 something, it was a black guy was like the senator, but because the demographics of the neighborhood changed to mostly Latino, now it's since like the 90s or whatever, it's been the same Latino guy that's been and now the what do you call it, the demographics is changing again. So now that's like the talk of like, is it gonna go back to being a black dude? Is gonna be a white guy? Because now it's so mixed, and which you can say what you want about
right.
that, but it's interesting because when you talk about like political positions that are district based, like I want to say like people that are in like the House, like they're voted on by like districts. So like, if there's this, for example, there's a certain part of Chicago where it's like they're always going to have, unless all the Hispanic folks move out, but they're always going to have a Hispanic representative because everybody that lives in that district is Hispanic. And like Josh mentioned earlier, you're actually allowed to redraw the map in which what you want your district to be. Yeah. So if you look at the map, they literally, it's a ridiculous thing, but it's
ridiculous.
and it's like, it basically, they circle all the places where Hispanic people live on the West Side, and just basically wherever they live. And it's just like, it's all like crazy, but they did that so they can make sure they get the Hispanic vote, which is fine, I guess, if you to get that Hispanic representation, because I'm sure there's not a lot of Hispanic, in comparison to, white, whatever. But I didn't even know that was legal, but it's perfectly legal.
What's funny is like, I would want to believe it was fine if it worked that way more than not, in which it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's for me, I would be okay with it being legal as long as it was benefiting everybody, but it obviously isn't, so in that sense, it's like, all right, this doesn't actually work.
Yeah. Because and even to my earlier point of like popular votes don't usually matter enough. That's not always the case, but more often than not, it's the case. Last few presidential elections where Republicans won, the popular vote is always going to lean Democratic. But then you get into like this last state election and whatnot. Illinois is overwhelmingly red. And then you see this little fat ass blue dot up in the northeast side of Chicago.
Yeah.
And so it makes the state blue because there's more people in Chicago than the entire state.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just the Chicagoland area. Because like
Chicagoland area.
Because if you, like you said, if you look at Northeast, what you say, Illinois? Obviously. If you look at Northeast, it's like 10 million people. Or maybe I'm making the number up. But it's a ridiculous amount of people just in that, like you said, in that bunch. Yeah. And then everyone else is just the country and red. And if I was them, I would feel really frustrated. Like, man, like, the whole state is red, but you can move to Iowa or Indiana. So, I mean,
literally,
you be with your people. But
so I want to jump to the next thing unless somebody else has something to say on this.
No, man. When it comes to like a lot of politics, your boy is at a bit of a loss, man. In regards to like the, how to rule, like how everything, like the logistics, I guess you could say.
I mean, hey, just talk shit.
Okay. Well, I was going to just add one thing. Like, I just feel like when it comes to the point where you have to defend yourself, you are justified in using violence, I guess. Like,
that's my next point.
I hate to say it like that, but I mean,
I was going to ask a question about that, but yeah, Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, that was the next point I want to get to is often, especially when it's against whoever the ruling class is or the people who get to benefit from the oppression of others or get to have cognitive dissonance against an oppressed people, are always going to advocate that protests should be peaceful and or quiet. Meanwhile, to my point earlier of, I want you to tell me when nonviolence has really led to major change. Like,
set yourself on fire.
Setting yourself on fire, that's still self-violence. But
violence against yourself.
But the only thing I can think of is, like, you know, back in the mid 50s, the bus boycott. But how long did that? It literally took over a year of them doing that. So it wasn't, and I get change takes time. I get that, but I feel like when it's life, you know, like stuff where your life depends on it, I just feel like you don't have, you know, a year and a half to carpool and walk. I feel like that's not, you know, it takes more than that. So I mean, I agree with you. You're
also talking about Alabama in the 60s, the small bit, like a lot more small businesses. You're also talking about in that case of nonviolence, I think the difference between that and our current generation is things are too accessible to us to have that kind of time commitment.
Oh yeah, that will never work today.
And like, the time commitment is what hurt wallets. And we, as strong as the black dollar is and all of that kind of stuff, this generation, myself included, we just don't have the kind of we don't have that kind of fortitude to affect their wallets like that.
Yeah. For example, with Amazon, for example, we all know how bad Amazon is. Yeah, I buy from them all the time. I mean, that's on me, but I just do.
That's why I don't
Amazon,
really
Walmart.
That's why I don't really be shitting on them, because it's like, yo, I be on it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to shit on them and then give my fucking money to the, you know what I'm saying?
But that's any of it though. Like we could talk, like you could be like, oh man, you know, Amazon is so evil. And then you'll go, who are you telling this to and how are you telling to them? Oh, you're talking on your phone that use some slew of African children to mine the chips for like it's like
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Which is also like not as big as well of a known thing, because I think I sent that video in the topics before. Some guy explaining to Joe Rogan. I guess he was like in one of those mining areas where it was like thousands of people there. But like apparently, like the way I could be, maybe I shouldn't say it because I might be butchering it, but I'm pretty sure the guy was saying that the folks, like the CEOs of like Apple and all them, are informed that it's actually not people doing it, but like they've never taken the time to go down there and actually see like the actual full scope of reality. So, you know, it's just a crazy situation, man.
I think one could make the argument that like the government is somewhat ran by these corporations. Like they bail them out constantly. It's like they in each other's pockets.
Yeah.
They influence the laws so much. It's like you could make a case that is a mixture of that also.
That's true, because you have like lobbyists, and you have obviously that company ALEC, which basically writes laws for politicians. Like there's but there's like this report. I forgot what the law was. There was some politician who like tried to submit a bill to whoever, and it literally still had like the ALEC like
logo on it or something.
Yeah, it had on the document, it had like the ALEC brand, you know, logo. Like you didn't even like try to like you could at least copy and paste, you know, like it's like it's not even your words. So that's true.
I was gonna say like the media, even the media corporations are owned almost by the same companies, so they can control narratives within our government also.
You know what? Just getting back to the, I guess we're like the question.
Do you think
about violence or I feel like some people, and this might be just based off convenience, like when it's convenient for their argument or otherwise, but when self-defense, I've heard people talk about it this way in my mind, where I took it as like when self-defense is involved, they don't consider it violence, or to the, it's almost like there's space in between the two in their mind. So I guess that's a caveat, but I feel like, let's say in the 50s, like during the civil rights, and like you asked the question, when has nonviolence actually changed anything? I don't feel like you can separate the two. I don't feel like the peaceful protests were just irrelevant. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like those two, I feel like they both played a point. Yeah. So it's hard to answer that question to say like, well, if it was just violence or if it was just physical, like physical riots or protests and stuff like that, then things would have changed as fast. It would have changed in the same way. I think it's important to acknowledge both of them.
Yeah,
that's a hard question to answer. I guess
I'm not saying that the nonviolence was irrelevant, but I do think self-defense gets looked at as violence by oppressive forces.
Because, I think it just in general. I don't like that. I mean, because I'm coming at that.
Take for example, the Black Panther Party. Black Panthers get treated like they was just niggas with guns mowing down white neighborhoods, being like, "You gonna give us free breakfast, nigga?" Like that. Like, it was literally them carrying guns under the Second Amendment, being like, "You're not going to cause us harm by us rallying for different political representation or policing our neighborhoods." And people showing up being like, "Them niggas got guns, they must be violent. Oh, they're a terrorist group because they feed kids breakfast for free." And like, it's
of course, that's based off because it was inconvenient for the powers that be, of course.
Right. Yeah. And so it's like, it's that thing of people look at Malcolm as a radical because he spoke so ill of white folks until he went to Mecca. But all he literally said was, we will commit violence if violence is necessary. But he never went around just smacking white women.
Exactly. And that's what disturbs me when people mention Malcolm X, like he was just walking like he was the leader of some commando group that was just like, and that wasn't the case. He was just about self-defense, basically what I was saying. Like, we can definitely, march and we can do all that. And, but the minute, y'all start hitting us upside the head, then we're just gonna be out here fighting. And like I said, we're outgunned. Like, y'all got all the equipment, y'all got all the gun stuff, so we're probably gonna lose. But it's just, so be it. But it is what it is.
Yeah, to me, nonviolence relies too much on whites. In those scenarios is why I'm going to say white people. But the nonviolent side of it relies so heavily on white sympathy.
Yeah. And because that's basically why they were doing it. It was so they can be like, see, we're not doing anything. Look at us. That was the whole reason for the whole nonviolent thing. So it can be like, look how monstrous these people are. It's not us, it's them. But that works
to some degree. Yeah. Because think about it, it's like you go, oh, that should help us eventually. But then I go, when someone's sitting at a diner and then gets smacked upside the head with a cast iron skillet because they want to sit at the counter, that white person over there in the booth is not going, you shouldn't do that. They're going, that nigga shouldn't have been here in the first place. So I don't like.
I know, man. But I think they both were necessary, yo. People needed to see how ridiculous that shit was and the horrors, and like also like it's an incredible. There's a strength to that. There's a strength to that for sure. Like,
I'm not saying it's not.
That's a wonderful display. There's a strength to that, and that needed to be seen the same way. What's that movie that Will Smith recently came out with?
Emancipation.
About the guy who ran, and like I think it was like 3 or 4 days through the swamps and stuff to get to safety. And like when he finally got to safety, he took those pictures. He took those famous pictures of his back with all the whips on it. And like, and it flew around the world essentially, and is and actually ended up doing some good. So I definitely think that like,
But
it's a hard one, man. I can't. Of course,
even with that,
no.
my slight pushback. Sorry if I'm cutting you off.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Even with that even gets into world sympathy because America's so egotistical that they're like, well, as long as ain't nobody saying shit to us, we gonna keep on doing what we do. But once we start getting guilt tripped, then like, oh no, we're not really that.
Like George Floyd, basically.
Look,
literally.
I feel that, but the point is, if there's a certain way about going things, it doesn't mean that it's right or that I like it, but it worked. It worked in that context. It worked in the way things were going. You know what I'm saying? At that time, like that was a method that worked and that was actually helpful.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm just saying.
I think it's. I don't know, and I'm also trying to figure. I'm also asking myself, like, if somebody hits me over the head with a frying pan, and I use self-defense, is that violent? Like, am I committing? We need to figure out our definition of violence here. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think what's up for debate. I don't think that part is up for debate because we're not saying whether or not it is or isn't violence. The narrative that's going to get spun around it is what's going to dictate whether or not that's violence. We're all clear I'm asking. Okay. I think we're all clear that. My bad, Adam. Speak for yourself.
No, for me, I'm speaking specifically from a technical standpoint. It is violence, but I mean, it's technically violence, but
it should get looked at as more justified because
to me, it feels like more of a in martial arts where they say yielding to your opponent's power or whatever like that. To me, it's like this motherfucker's on some nonsense. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm yielding to this shit and then I'm countering. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So. But what happens is the reason why the ignorant majority will use King as an example is because they go, we whoop that nigga's ass every day and he never fought back. That's a good one.
What you're saying is the majority see it that way versus this is a great show of strength. You know what I'm saying? Like, and which is what all the oppressors lacked in that moment.
I'm saying that's a tool that gets used. Not necessarily like our perception is our perception can be, oh, that's a great strength that he could practice that much, like self-check. That he don't punch them back in the face because he wants to go about that pacifist route. Sure,
which I know he wanted to. I'm like, did he ever hit any? Like, was this never documented that he smacked somebody because they were talking shit? Like, come on, man. I'm like, bro, you didn't hit nobody, nothing. All that shit they did. Damn.
We can objectively look at it that way, but the way that they use him as a tool is because of that. So that's two different conversations.
So I guess we're not necessarily speaking our opinion. We're speaking our opinions of like the context of the times.
The context and how it's and structural use of these things.
Okay, I'm just speaking my opinion on just straight up like what I
you rarely see like them champion Malcolm X.
I know.
Yeah. And we all know that he played a big role.
Yeah.
So what's up with that?
And even if you look at when they both got killed, one, the U.S. has already been charged. Granted, it was a civil case for being responsible for the murder of King, but it was when King started. They barely said anything when he was just talking about equal rights for Black folks. As soon as he started talking that anti-capitalist shit, they got him the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Malcolm, when he was like, you white devils and all kind of shit, they left that nigga alone. As soon as he started talking about, oh man, white people are my brothers, I met all of them in Mecca, like it's not about the people anymore, it's about, an oppressive regime that pushes Black people down for capitalist reasons, they got him the fuck out of here. So it's...
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Adam.
No, I was gonna say, as long as we just sound like angry Black people, they don't care. It's like, okay, it's just, but as soon as they start moving people like Fred Hampton, like, okay, this person is becoming, you know,
Mhm.
a
So as
threat.
Fred Hampton started talking that Rainbow Coalition shit and got
Yeah.
poor whites to get into on the movement, they got him the fuck out of here. That's like it's a common thread in all these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think cross-class unity as opposed to racial division is an act of violence against this particular regime for them. That is a major act of violence for them because in order for capitalism to exist, poor people have to exist. And as long as poor people don't unite against, because poor people will always be the overwhelming majority. Lower middle class and lower class will always be an overwhelming majority to upper middle and the 1% or whatever.
Yeah.
And as long as them motherfuckers don't ever unite and do that thing Marcus was talking about overthrowing the government based on what the Constitution says, then you
To
keep
go,
Huh?
my bad.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say to go farther with that is like the Martin Luther, because you were talking about financial stability, and a lot of people believe that before we were fighting for integration, that's something that we actually had.
Yeah.
And
That's true.
you can make a case that because I think eventually we would have integrated, but I think it was key to destroy that because it was segregated and Black people were flourishing in many areas, and you could make a case that integration did not do more good than it could have been happening, because I like I said, I do believe that the integration was inevitable, or like a civil war. But I just want to make that point that's what they were building is financial institutions at that time, and it was destroyed.
Yeah,
Right.
that's absolutely true.
In like Oklahoma and stuff.
Yeah, Tulsa, Greenwood,
all over the country.
a bunch of
Chicago.
Chicago.
all over the country.
All of these,
what was it? I some years ago, over a decade ago now, actually, I was in Philly, and I had a conversation with a table of women that were in the Black Panther Party.
Oh wow!
And one of the ladies, because I love elders, she was hilarious because somebody said something about integration, and we just sit here eating dinner, and she goes, "Man, fuck that. Integration was the worst thing that ever happened to niggas."
a lot of people believe that
because
that's valid.
Because if you look at those, what she said and what I think is a valid form of semantics, integration never happened. Black folks assimilated into white America.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Because integration is we take our purest form of this thing and this purest form of this thing, and then we meet and everything gets respected. We got pushed into the whole, you can even start from, the end, the quote unquote, end of slavery of being like, we made sure y'all had no means of having any equal footing, not just go out there and work. And then we're going to make black codes to make sure like that y'all still get arrested and have to serve time and not get paid. And then we're going to make Jim Crow laws, and then we're going to redline. Like all of these things kind of got put into place to make black folks look like they were a part of society, but the problem of why they could not get on solid ground was their fault.
Exactly. Like, I hate when people say like slavery. Well, first of all, it seems like, and I didn't make this up, but it seemed like white people add like 100 years. I think Louis C.K. said that, like white folks add like another 100 years to when slavery was. Like slavery was 700 years ago. I'm like, I mean, sure, it started. I mean, it wasn't even that long ago, but like it only ended like 150 years ago. Like that's not that long ago. But people always make it seem like when slavery ended, the U.S. government like, all right, we're about to have this job fair and this job training, so y'all get on your feet. That's not what happened.
Yeah,
That's not what happened.
So it's not like, so the success that Black folks did find was through their own will. It wasn't like anybody was getting any help. So and just to add on to what y'all was saying, like Black people who were prospering for like a good 30 years, believe it or not,
During
a lot of Reconstruction, like a lot of people,
Reconstruction,
a lot of Black people were doing fine. And like, it just speaking specifically of Chicago, like, obviously Great Migration, a bunch of folks came up here, for like factory jobs and this and that. And there was a period, and there was a period where, unfortunately they were all stuffed in Bronzeville, basically. However, though, you know how like our money, how they say how the Black dollar like leaves the Black community basically immediately, like, but they were saying back in that time it was, it was recycling 6-7 times in Bronzeville, but 6-7 times. So they were able to grow businesses, and because Black people were in the same district, now you started seeing Black people actually get representation in DC. So now, because there's so many Black people in the area, they were able to vote in the first Black, representatives and all that. So segregation, it actually gave Black people political power that they had never had before. So that's another thing that kind of people don't really think about as far as political representation. So that's another, and obviously economically, as I was saying, the Black dollar was just recycling in Black neighborhoods because we weren't allowed to go anywhere else. So, and then once people saw that, they're like, oh crap, let's, then Black folks started going to the West Side when they started bringing things up. And, and another thing, and I'll end it on this, a lot of Black folks actually was owning their homes at that time. And then they're like, we can't have this. So we're going to bulldoze your homes. You're going to build all these highways. We're going to build these housing projects. We're going to stuff all y'all in the housing projects. And then you won't be able to own anything anymore. So the whole home ownership, it drastically dropped because they stuck everybody in the projects. So it's like Josh was saying, like there's so many different phases of racism in the United States. Like obviously slavery being like the foundation basically. And then, Jim Crow and, then the creation of the KKK. It's like it seems like after slavery, like every 20, 30 years, there was a new hurdle. Right. So that's it. I'm done with my history lesson.
I mean, and was it the argument I make to people these days is I go, slavery didn't end in 1996.
Yeah. I mean, you can argue it's still a thing. I mean, like
it is still a thing because the jail system and how the 13th Amendment like literally says you're still a slave if you get arrested.
They want us all remember the Titans.
So I'm trying to remember if there was another point on this, but I personally feel like some degree of violence is usually necessary for progress or at least change, like major change.
And
not just on the surface level. Huh?
Like the Boston Tea Party. Like just because no one was physically punched in the face, them destroying is violence.
Yes.
And it caused the humongous change. So
big economic thing. Or we can get into, the revolution of Haiti. If that when that shit happened, motherfuckers was down in Louisiana like, we got us. There's too many of them here. We can't let them get that idea.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm of the camp that marching is cool. It's great for, civil unrest, if you will.
And getting your steps in.
But even inside of that, I'm not against if some property damage got to happen. Because what was it? I remember when some of the quote unquote rioting was happening, I remember talking to an affluent Black woman that was working for our organization at the time. And she was like, people in here breaking into, I can't think of big stores. Svartsky and all of that kind of stuff.
Nordstrom.
No, I was about to say Aldo. I don't remember.
You say Starsky? You said Swartz. I got what you're talking about. The jewelry store, right?
Yeah, the jewelry store.
I can never pronounce that place.
He was like, they're breaking into Manolo Blahnik. Like, how could they be doing this? And I'm like, fuck them stores. Who cares? Like, they're not.
You got insurance, they'll be right.
It's like they'll be fine. They'll be fine. Literally, if you can afford to rent on the Magnificent Mile, paying $50,000 a month for your closet of clothes, you'll be fine. Your insurance policy is amazing, I'm sure.
Oh man, I'm sure they'll be fine, but
I don't care for big corporations. I got you. I'm with you on that. I don't think it helps like by breaking into a store and like some people were like taking like anybody who's breaking into something and taking something like a new TV is not going to help the cause. If you broke in and stole I hope people like running with TVs and shit. It's not going to help the fucking cause at all, bro. Hey,
yeah.
I never said it helped the cause.
Yeah,
I'm saying
maybe so. I'm just saying.
I don't agree with rioting and looting either. However, I don't agree with it. However, I don't mind it either. Like I'm not gonna do it, but if I see someone doing it, I'm not gonna judge that, bro. Like whatever.
Yeah, I understand the anger or the frustration behind it, and it just gets aimed in whatever direction. It's like, you know, we're sick of this. Like I understand that. I feel like I understand what's behind it, but just the direction that one like. A couple new fucking chains is just not gonna do anything for the cause. That's all I'm saying.
But the thing is, like I don't think we should make the mistake of inherently grouping those people with the people who are marching. Like is always gonna be opportunists
bad apples, like the police have.
Taking advantage of situations.
I'm only speaking to those people.
That I don't think we should necessarily say that's them doing that.
I agree.
I'm only speaking to those people, not you know what I'm saying.
I froze up.
Everybody.
Yeah, you did.
Actually,
I think.
You hitting that high note.
But you know what though? I should have, and it didn't come to me at a time that always happens, but. When my professor was speaking, I should have gave her that line that Martin Luther King says when he says, riots are the voice of the unheard, which he's not saying that he agrees with rioting, but that's him sympathizing with people that do riot. That's sympathy. He's not saying it's right, but he's like, yeah, but I get it. That's, what he's saying there. So.
It's residual.
I agree with you. So.
Did I freeze?
For a second, yeah.
Okay.
So to round this out, let's say shit hits the fan like particularly bad. That like whatever is the how should I say? Whatever is the catalyst that's going to be the most infuriating to you, your mom's got choked out by a cop. What is it? A dude in a Trump hat punted your kid. Like what? Like something happened. Like your district or your state representative was like, hey. If you wear jeans older than 3 years old and you darker than a paper bag, you going to jail. Like whatever it is, some absurdity.
Well, I tell you what, man. If somebody punches my kid, I'm gonna kill him. So I'm just letting you know that now. So
please yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they murder.
Yeah, it's pretty much that's just how it's got to be.
What Are you staying peaceful or are you burning shit down?
Yeah, man,
Aaron got the look on his face like, you motherfucker.
I mean, like I said, if like you were saying, if some Trump supporter came in and kicked my kid, I'm gonna kill him. But like, and you said somebody chucks out my mama, I'm gonna kill them too. So that's just what's got to happen. I mean,
I don't think there's going to be much peace there. Yeah. I don't want to say too much to get on some type of terrorist list or some shit.
I don't care. Sign me up. Government already got my prints. They got my DNA. So they got everything on me. So.
Yo, okay, I just want to hear, I want to make sure I heard it correctly because my headphones are acting up. So everything is like in and out delayed for the last like 10 minutes or so.
Gotcha.
Did you say if somebody smacked my mama up or like chucked my mama up on the sidewalk?
I said if somebody kicks my kid or somebody chucks out my mama, I'm going to kill him. That's what I said.
Oh yeah, I would like to hit you with I'm gonna be on my booty shit, but I'm probably gonna take it to the it's probably gonna turn into a physical altercation.
Everybody goes down.
But yeah, I mean, it's obviously I don't know until the shit happens. I would like to think that I would handle my business, but let's hope we never had to find out. Shit.
Same.
It's just, that's my final answer. So I don't say I'm just pulling out my 9. So I don't directly just say I'm pulling my 9 out.
I think of the song that's on Damn that Kendrick Lamar basically says what we said.
I know what song's about.
Oh shit!
I think is it XXX?
Yeah,
where he's like
starts off singing like, "Dang, if someone killed my cousin, and he listed like,
yeah." I know what you're talking about.
Well, audience, let us know your thoughts. If you're like, no matter what, I'm going to throw on my robe and I'm going to pray for him. Or you're like, nah,
I'm going to throw on my robe.
I'm going to get in the blicky and everybody's going to stick to the floor. You can write us at InforMILLyPodcast@gmail.com. You know it. And you can hit us up on our social medias, Informally Honest everywhere. And we thank you. We appreciate you. Fellas, any last thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, man, don't touch my family.
Bitch, I did that. X-ray. That's all I got to say.
Are we saying our final thoughts?
There we are. It's over.
I think it's been another lovely discussion from 4 brothers from the Miller neighborhood of Gary, Indiana.
Take us away.
Final thoughts are, I hope we know when to use violence and when not to. You know what I'm saying? Use it when you need it. But
I agree with that.
Yeah. You can dig that. And if you do, fuck that motherfucker up. Any conversation you have, any connection you make, and any person you engage, we encourage, empower, and implore you to always be forthright, be vulnerable, and please, 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 we encourage you. I already said that shit. Be honest. Just be honest. I know it'd be hard sometimes, but be honest.
To yourself.
To yourself.
To yourself.
Peace.
Peace, y'all. Thanks for listening. Without shedding a tear for my brother, I really wanna try for my brother, 'cause I truly do feel for my brother.